Welcome to the Sound on Sound electronic music podcast channel. I'm William J. Stokes, and this is My Life in Modules, a podcast about modular synthesis, where each episode I invite a guest to select the Eurorack modules that have meant the most to them and talk to me about why, before treating us to an exclusive performance using only that modest selection. This episode, we welcome French-Breton musical artist, multi-instrumentalist and synthesist Yann Tiersen. A leading light of contemporary composition for 3 decades now, Yann has 20 genre-fluid albums to his name, give or take, which together incorporate piano, traditional folk instrumentation, electronics, vocals and more. His work has also been known to feature the occasional guest, including the Divine Comedy's Neil Hannon, the Cocteau Twins' Elizabeth Fraser, the great Jane Birkin, Sons, Stephen O'Malley, and the excellent Kankis. Many will recognise Yann's work from his wonderful soundtracks for cult classic films such as Wolfgang Becker's Goodbye Lenin and perhaps most famously Jean-Pierre Jeunet's Le Fabuleux Destin d'Amélie Poulain, which saw him break onto the global stage in both the worlds of film and music. His latest album, Rattling from a Distance, The Liquid Hour, is an explorative survey of 2 poles of Yann's artistic output, half comprised of intimate and intense piano pieces and half of frenetic, rhythmic electronic compositions. Welcome, Yann.
Hello.
Quite a drawn-out introduction now that I listen to it back. Now, something I think we need to dispel from the outset here, because I know I just introduced you, mentioning Amélie, but I've read in interviews in the past that, of course, you garnered a lot of recognition through that, particularly outside of France, but you've also spent the last 20 years or so trying to remind people, no, I'm not really a film composer.
Yeah, because actually I didn't do any soundtrack for Amélie. It was just like the director just like use of my first albums and asking for me doing stuff for the movie, but I was releasing I think it was my 4th album at the time, and I didn't have any time for the movie, so I just like gave him some unreleased track, and he used like all tracks. And to be honest, I wasn't really aligning with the movie and the Amélie world. Just too sweet, too old-fashioned. I think it's a film about in Paris, and I think Paris, the good thing about this city is that it's really multicultural, and there is people from every ethnicity. And unfortunately, it wasn't present on the movie, and I think it's quite bad.
Well, I mean, it is. Now that you mention it, it is true. It's not a very diverse movie. It's a very kind of dated view of romantic Paris, isn't it?
Yeah, and I never felt like really comfortable with the movie, and even with the Jean-Pierre Jeunet like world, because there was this kind of nostalgia and stuff that I don't. It's not my taste. I'm not really into that. And actually, it's been really hard to be linked to that, because I think it's not present in my music, and it's to be linked to a nostalgic film. And then, like suddenly people say, oh yeah, it's the kind of nostalgic and everything. And it's not. So, okay.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? You just don't know what's going to be the thing that's just going to kind of, take off into areas that you just never thought it would, and suddenly you're having to kind of shake off some sort of reputation. But of course, a lot of people love that music as well, and I think it got to #1 in the French album charts, if I remember that soundtrack album, which is quite an amazing achievement for any film soundtrack. But not even, I've actually read in the past you haven't even described yourself as a composer.
Oh no, because I'm not. I'm coming from, I started to do music with my band, and I was mainly playing guitar, and it was like, post-punk kind of like 90s, and I'm coming from that. I never composed anything. I mean, it's just like I was really into sampling, and I started to sampled, acoustic instruments or orchestras and stuff. And then I eventually did write some stuff for strings, but it's always been through, kind of a more sampling electronic approach, but not at first, and I'm too lazy to be a composer. I'm not. I'm just like playing with sound, and having fun with it. And I'm not the kind of guy like standing in front of a piece of paper all day long. I'm just like turning knobs and stuff.
No, there is definitely a playfulness about what you do across your whole catalogue. Even that, even the first sort of few albums where that Genet ended up falling in love with for the Amélie soundtrack. It was is it Rue Cascade? That record feels incredibly playful and explorative, and almost kind of like just a collection of sort of miniature stories or something like that are kind of in this fanciful world.
When I started to do music, I was really into really short pieces and really short songs. And with time, it's like the opposite now. just release an album with 5 songs on one of the album. It's like it's 11 minutes long. Oh my God!
I mean that album is really it's a really interesting and lovely little exploration of your sort of full catalogue. I mean, but it's not at the time of recording. It is not out, but by the time you hear this, dear listener, it will be out in the world. And I think I'm right in thinking that the Liquid Hour half was mixed by someone I hugely respect, and I interviewed him myself. Actually, really enjoyed interviewing him. Randall Dunn, is that right?
Yeah.
A brilliant producer and an engineer who, of course, has worked a lot with Stephen O'Malley and Son, who you have also worked with.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
It's the first time that my album is mixed. That we're not in the same room, because I'm used to work with Gareth, and this is Gareth Jones, who we just before pressing record, we ascertained that he's a good mutual friend and someone we've both worked with a lot. I think at one point, by the way, on that note, I seem to remember Gareth leaving a session with my band Voca Gentle and going straight to Ouessant to work with you on, I think it was Portrait. Yes, I mean we're working together since infinity, I would say. So it's been a while, and
too many to count.
And for this album, actually, I was like, because it was the piano side and the other, and I was going on this sailing tour every summer. I tried to tour differently, and so it wasn't possible to mix on Ocean, and yeah, I tried to be a bit out of my comfort zone and family zone, and so I worked with Randall. It was like quite weird at the beginning because it was really good, but it was like, I never mixed an album like with someone being in the other side of the Atlantic and not being in the same room. So I was really, what? And but yeah, it was the what I wanted to do, like let the baby go and see what happens. And I'm really happy with the result.
Well, there is a kind of a theme on that album of this sort of smallness and bigness and letting go of control, right? And this kind of dialogue. It feels like it works really well that on the one side you've got these very introspective, intimate pieces, and then the other side you really did kind of explode it outwards, both in the making of it and in the way that you performed it. Yeah.
I mean, the piano side, like the album is divided in 2 parts. So there is one, it's just piano. And actually, I just wanted to do, for the first time, just piano and try to be really simple and minimal. And it's funny because we did the take and it was really close mic'd. at that point that it was impossible to treat anything without kind of destroying the sound. Gareth tried, and that was what, oh, you did like lots of compression, and they said, no, I didn't. I say, sure. And I went to the mastering with the rough mixes, and we tried to putting some EQs, some tiny bit of compression. It was impossible. So it's just the mics and that's it.
Yeah, that's So I mean, you can hear that in it. So natural sounding.
And the second part, it's it was a long process. And actually, I started with trying to start the album using Bitwig on Linux. I don't know why. I didn't want to. I say, okay, I will start my album on Linux. Yes. Okay. So I did it. And I just mangled with staying in the box and just working with textures and digital side of things. And then I went to the studio, and then everything exploded. And I did use my synth and a lot of 4 drum machine in every song. There is lots of this drums textures. With an 808 and the Percons, I fell in love with this Erica synth.
Ah, yes, the Erica synth Percons. Yeah, amazing drum machine, that, isn't it?
Yeah,
Beast.
It's funny because I was doing this tour in Europe, and I was crashing at Erica synth headquarters. I mean, my tour, I was touring with my van, and the goal was to sleep in people's garden. So I end up in Riga, sleeping in the garden of Erica synth's headquarters. And in the morning, I was like, oh my God, I need to go to the toilets, but there is nobody there. So I found the guy that I knew and said, I'm really sorry, but can I go to, can you open the, and we ended up having coffee and breakfast. And I don't know why, of course, we're starting to talk about gears, and we went in a basement, and they have this amazing, stage and PA that is completely crazy. And to show me the PA, just use the Percons, and I don't know why I thought the Percons was kind of a old-fashioned drum machine, maybe because of the look. And I was,
it does look quite old-fashioned, yeah.
It's just so good with the chance operation, and it's so intuitive. I felt completely in love and said, can I buy one? And so and then it was really, really a big part of the album.
Oh, great. Oh, that's a really nice little nugget to know, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go and listen to it slightly differently now.
The album would have been completely different if I had have toilets at that time,
Yeah, I mean, as I'm sure is true for a lot of albums. Okay, well, before we get into the modules that you've chosen for this podcast, I want to raise something with you. You spent quite a bit of your childhood in Rennes. The Bretagne town of Rennes, which is an amazing place, and it's home to, among lots of other things, Musicale, which is an amazing festival set up by Jean-Louis Brossard, I think, this cult figure in Rennes, very, very well respected, a kind of almost like a sort of a French Michael Eavis meets John Peel sort of figure. And you played Musicale in 1998, I think. And I am really happy to be able to say that I played the most recent one in December. And I think it's important that we mention it because I feel like hardly anyone knows about it. And it is one of the best festivals I've ever been to. And I think it is honestly one of the best festivals out there. I mean, for those unfamiliar with it, how can we describe it?
It's an amazing festival. It started in the 80s with Jean-Louis, Hervé, and Beatrice, and they did I'd say 80s band, and then after it's always been about discovery, and Jean-Louis just traveled the world, and he's always discovering new stuff. And I saw Nirvana there, Bleach period.
Amazing.
I saw an annoying bout, and I mean, he always program bands before they explode, and still now. I play at this festival, and I'm so happy because it's always been. I play on Phare, and I play where you played in the big warehouses.
Yeah. This is a big industrial estate just outside the center of town. Even though the nucleus of the whole thing is the Ubu Club, right, where everything kind of kicked off.
Yeah, and before it was like downtown, and it was really good, but it was crazy because everybody was in the street, and it was like, I don't know, like a revolution in Rennes for 3-4 days. It is amazing, and it's still amazing. And I play in those halls, and it is so, to say that Jean-Louis is always like listening to the music a lot. At that time, I just released Phare, which was a piano album, kind of, and I was preparing 11, which was completely electronic. And I said to Jean-Louis, wanted to program me before, but it was during COVID, so I didn't do it. And I said, yeah, but I can play in the hall. And he said, yeah, but it's a piano album. I said, Jean-Louis, just listen to what, and he listened to it, and he said, yeah, great. And he's so courageous all the time. And to do, he programmed Kinkis on this edition. It's always, I mean, it's amazing. And it's a really big part of who I am, actually, because I grew up there with this huge festival every year. And also, during all year, there were so many bands playing in Rennes because of them and because of the festival. It was, great.
I think it was, every year, obviously, there's going to be lots of interviews with Jean-Louis, and I remember there was an article in La Libération this year, or last year rather, where he said, I just like UFOs. I just like booking UFOs that no one knows what they are. And I just thought that was a lovely way of putting it, because it really does. There's an amazing trust in the lineup. People go not having heard of half of it.
That's crazy, because it's not that often that you get, like, especially now, people like doing this kind of, taking this kind of risk, maybe there is the Guess Who in Utrecht, or
and it is amazing. And I managed to see Jean-Louis, I think, twice in like say hello twice. I was thinking, this is a person he's trying to see every single band that he can from side of stage. He's probably the person most in demand there, and I've somehow managed to see him twice in different places. Amazing.
And you know what he's doing as well? It's like when there is bands playing in Lúbadh during the year, he's always there to welcome them with a glass of something, and
I think pastis, if I'm not mistaken. Oh gosh. Okay, we could go on about that, but I'm glad that we were able to squeeze Musicale into this episode, because I think it's very important. Before we dive into your selection of modules, I'm interested to hear a little bit about your amazing studio, Eskal, which is on the island of Ouessant. This is a beautiful sort of retreat. It's got a venue inside. It's a bit of a paradise, really.
Yeah, it is the disco of the island, and then it closed in early 2000, and it is a ruin, basically. And I always dreamed of like transform it and doing a studio there, but it wasn't on sale. It was just rotting, and suddenly it was, and so I bought it, and then just like built a studio in it. And as it was the disco, we kept it open, and it's also a venue. We do music lessons as well, and
amazing.
And next weekend we have the Discutal, it's called, and it's a modular weekend. So with lots of people like module builders, and artists
Oh,
and
brilliant.
stuff. So it's good. Yeah.
And are there many people who live on the island?
800.
Wow, that's very small.
Yeah.
You must know all of them.
No, not almost.
I can imagine it's good, like when you're recording there, kind of you go out and get a cup of coffee in the day, you're going to see, the same people, and they probably know that you're recording something, can ask how it's going.
Yeah, that's funny because with I always manage to record in September. I don't know why, or mixing with Gareth. We were and in September, it is there is a music festival on the island, a big one. And actually, it's always been me working and trying not to party and to go out, and everybody's around completely smashed and drunk. So it's funny.
Okay, let's dive into your selection of modules. Really interesting little set here of 5 modules.
Yeah,
and you started off fairly kind of classically. The Serge NTO, the new Timbral oscillator. This is kind of a real classic circuit that's been adapted into Eurorack format. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I love, I love oscillators and sources and untouched kind of. I used to actually. That's how I met Andreas Schneider. Biog, because I was rehearsing in Berlin, and at that time I had this stupid idea, Silver Apple. I had 2 or 3 oscillators, old-fashioned ones, just with the knobs to do drones on stage. And I really love sources and just sine waves or whatever, I love also West Coast, this type of so.
What do you sort of make of the way that, I'm thinking sort of Tip Top Audio recently, putting a load of Buchla modules into Eurorack format, and if I'm not mistaken, is it Random Source who has adapted the Serge into Eurorack?
Yeah.
What's your take on the sort of on the the adaptation of these older, larger format circuits down into Eurorack?
I don't know. I didn't try the Tip Top. I got an easel that I love. I'm getting a bit wiser module-wise, so I didn't. I thought, okay, I got my, I got some verbose, modules. I got the further generator, endorphins that I use a lot.
I think it's interesting that, the last episode of this podcast, we had Tony Rolando on, and we had an interesting part of that discussion. We had an interesting chat about how modular is very much departing from those kind of classic foundations with just filters and I don't know, ring modulators and oscillators and that kind of thing, and VCAs, and now there's granular processes, and we've got different effects and expert sleepers distings, which are sort of almost computers inside a system, and there's this amazing, it's just exploded outwards into so many different types of module that it's just interesting when you kind of your selection is the Serge in there sort of stands apart as this very classic bit of analog synthesis, which is kind of an amazing thing really, that Eurorack can take these really old school classics and make them work in perfect harmony with these brand new, something that came out 1 week ago. Yeah,
that's funny because my I'm trying to build a really, because I have a small setup for stage, but a smaller one because I want to be the lightest possible. And I have classic stuff, and I just bought for space purposes the 4MS meta module, which is almost completely
I haven't tried that actually.
I mean, that's great to I think it will be really good for utilities and this kind of stuff. and also maybe FX, or sometimes I want to. It's good to have space, and to spare it for really important stuff, and then if you can go digital or virtual, like doesn't matter if the workflow is,
Absolutely, yeah. And also I think we're in a really good position where for those utilities that historically took up a load of space in the rack,
exactly,
suddenly, you can actually save that space for some really much more performative, hands-on, modules.
So I don't know, I didn't try it yet because I'm building the so I would see, maybe we'll see.
Yeah, well, you have to let me know how it goes. It does look very pretty, that module with its little screen and all its little.
I know.
Which we love, of course, we love. Okay, the next talking of the classics, I mean, the next module you've chosen is it almost goes even further back. Well, actually, no, that's not accurate to say. It doesn't go further back, but it goes similarly back to a classic era of music making. And this is the Instruō, and I'm going to say this wrong, as I always do with Instruō modules. The Lúbadh.
Yeah.
I feel like I should be doing a somewhere in there, but
yeah. We raise our son in Breton language, which is a Celtic language. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce Scottish Gaelic. So I love this module. It's the center of my live set. Actually, it's where, because it's really simple. You can do lots. I use it fairly simply on stage.
Mm-hmm. This is just for those unfamiliar. This is a tape sort of inspired module that you can record and play back, and pretty much do anything you can do with tape, right?
Yeah, I use it a lot as well on in the studio, and I did some where I did really big patches, with lots of LFOs and stuff and it's crazy. I mean, I love it. I love it that much. And you get those two tapes, it's you can use it linked in the stereo, or you can separate both. It's crazy. I didn't use the new firmware though, where there
was a big firmware change, wasn't there?
Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure what it was that they did differently. I know it was a significant one, but I don't have that module, so I wasn't one of the sort of the lucky ones to experience it.
I think it's more to be able to use it in sync and more, so it's not how I use it, so I'm keeping it free.
Yeah, not better, just different. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I love. There's seemingly a kind of a renewed fascination with tape style workflows across so many things now. I mean, from the OP1 to the there's the S4, the Torso Electronics S4. That's kind of a virtual 4-track. It's kind of designed to be. Then
it's funny. A friend just came with it today.
Oh, really?
Island.
Wow.
An Italian friend, and it said, "Oh yeah, I got this," and so it was the first time I was looking, and you mentioned it the same day.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's an interesting one because it's kind of the limit. It's the you record into the buffer, and there's sound on sound that you can implement sound on sound recording, and but you only get 4 tracks. And once you delete something, it's deleted forever, and these kinds of things. And in the same way, there's the make noise morphogene. There's the I think it's called the Stardust, a new qubit module, similar kind of tape sort of style workflow. But what is it, do you think, about these kinds of workflows that people are falling in love with again?
I love tapes, but I did. I used to record I got two. I got a 16-track GH 16 and a Studer, and I also have two Revoxes, and I used to do loops. Mm-hmm. And I spent so many times, not that long ago, I went to this tape crazy era the period when I was recording and spending the whole day. I was like cutting the tapes, putting it in the trash, and then stick it together randomly.
Yeah.
It was stupid. It wasn't working. Sometimes it was, but sometimes it was too tiny. And I used it though. But so yeah, I mean, it's good to be able to have this kind of workflow, but not spending the day cutting tapes.
None of the hassle. But it has, I mean, it's got such a character, and as far as I remember, the DSP on the Lúbadh is a really interesting kind of DSP. It slightly degrades things, as far as I remember, especially the more that you record over the sound. Is that right?
Yeah. It's really it's organic, and I love it.
Okay, so from that onto something very different, but equally creative. A real, such an important developer. Mutable instruments, the beads. This is a granular processor, kind of descended from clouds. This is clearly, an important module for you.
Yeah, I've been using it a lot. It's kind of. Yeah, it's always in my process chain. Actually, I have this, looper from Instruō, and I also have a chain where it's another module from TouellSkouarn. It's a friend of mine. It's amazing filter, stereo filter distortion, and the beats as well. And it's always cross-fading to dry signal to this. Lush,
amazing!
Kind of, yeah.
Even, I mean, that the design of those instruments is so amazing. Even the reverb is a really distinctive flavor of reverb.
Yeah. I think I was on the verge to put marbles as well on the list, but I went for because I was thinking, okay, I can do a generative patch maybe, but I was like, yeah, but that's not the module I usually use, and I was more into doing a live thing. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for staying true to the brief of the podcast. We've been much appreciative. Okay, and yeah, again, talking about wet signals and dry signals and blending them, the perfect accompaniment to that, your next module, the black stereo delay from Erica Synths. This is this is like a clean, hi-fi digital delay, very different to the sort of the tapey sort of granular world that we've just been talking about.
Yeah, but that's my favorite delay. I think it sounds really good. I like the tap thing as well, that you can sync it, but it's not a clock. I mean, it's and it's. I love this delay a lot. I have two of those. I mean, I have a spare one that's really important in my setup. And yeah, there is no. I tried a lot of delays, and I think it's one of the really good one.
It's funny. I always think that with delays, it's the kind of effect that is so mysterious. It will always be mysterious. It will always be interesting, and it can become the real center of a sound. And it can be, as well as just a sort of a bit of a spatial effect. There's so much character in. I always think, for me, it's often the gain staging of it. If I have to drive something in too hard, or the opposite, if it's reading a signal super hot or something, I find it really difficult to work with. But when you hit one that just works with what you're doing, and it's kind of really able to read your signals as you are almost as you are coming up with ideas, you can send them into something and it will just blossom with all the kind of movement and character and space that you want. There's something about it, isn't there, that you kind of you just have to try out as many as you can until you find the one that really works with how you work.
Yeah, and they'll that's strange creatures because they all have their own personality, and it's true. Sometimes it's just use delays, and I don't like them.
Yeah,
and
it's hard to say why.
Yeah, because everything on paper, it's like, and even you listen to it and you say, "Oh, it's good," and then within the track, or it's not working. And other ones, it's just like, as you said, like this Eric Assen's delay is a digital one. It's like, but I don't know. It's quite warm, and I love it. That's
No, totally. It's great. I mean, that, and sometimes just like you got to hold your hands up and just say, do you know what? There are so many out there that I could have chosen, but this is the one I have, and I love it. It's really important, especially in modular. That's something that is really important, I think, too. It's one of the things about this podcast that I like the format of it, because it doesn't say, it doesn't sort of encourage anyone to think outside to all the possibilities of all the other types of modules they could have. It's about choosing something and working with it as best you can. And, it's so easy to always think about everything else that you could get instead of the thing you've got.
Yeah.
So
modular wisdom. Well,
I mean, I feel, I think it's about streaming now though, as well, with, Spotify. I feel the clangorous voices of all the other songs I could be listening to at any one moment. If you're listening to a vinyl, you don't have that. You don't have, every song ever saying, hey, you could be listening to this. You could be listening to this. You just put something on and you've committed to it and you're listening to it. And that's such a special thing. Yeah,
it's true. Yeah.
yeah. We could get into that. Yeah.
No, but I because I've been, I'm try to be reasonable now with modules, but well, I started to feel that, and then not trying too much stuff, and yeah.
Okay, so last module that you've chosen, you mentioned it earlier, TouellSkouarn, the Merc'het Brao, which is that's a Breton.
Merc'het Brao, it's like the beautiful girl.
This is amazing. Dual filter overdrive. Talk to me about this. Really, really interesting. In fact, I'm looking at my notes here. The Lúbadh and the Merc'het Brao kind of look quite good next to each other on the page. I think almost the Celtic languages coming together there.
Celtic team. It's Gael. Gael is one of my TouellSkouarn guy. Is one of my friends. He's organizing the modular festival that we have next weekend, and he did this module, and it's the same. I have it for everything, and I love the drive, and it's I have this this crossfader, and it's really, it's like sometimes I go really on stage. I bring lots of distortion, and it's always like kind of so. I love it. So beautiful. So, like grainy, like really can really be strong, and love it.
They definitely, TouellSkouarn really push the boundaries particularly with, it seems to me, with distortion. Really, like, as a developer, there's a lot of modules that are kind of almost designed to be punished a little. They've got, if I'm not mistaken, they've got tubes in one of their drive modules, for example. I mean, that's just so awesome.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And they start with a distortion that was called the Eskal Brelu. It's and it is a really good module as well, but really wide. You can just it's just completely crazy. And what I like, it's like this with this filter, it's like kind of contained a bit, still wide. It can be really, really harming people's ear, but you can still manage, because I did use the distortion on live, and sometimes it was like exploding. But it's good. It's amazing module.
I mean, I have a real fascination with things in stereo. I just think there's something about when a module is in stereo, it has like a kind of, there's a mystery to it that is, particularly when it comes to filtering, because stereo filtering is almost, it's a totally different type of process. It's kind of, it really challenges you to think about things in a slightly different way. And as far as I'm aware, this particular module has, it's both in stereo, but it's also, you can set the different sides of the field to different filter responses. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you can have this really interesting sort of, not just the processing of harmonic distortion, but also you're actually manipulating the frequencies in the stereo field differently, which can make for some really wild kind of movement around your head.
Yeah.
It's got like a notch filter on it as well as like a low pass, high pass. Is that right? I haven't used this module before.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's amazing.
Well, Yann Tiersen, thank you so much for coming on and joining me to talk about your life in modules.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure chatting, and I'm really excited to hear what you do with this selection.
Yeah, hope you will like it.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out the show notes page for this episode where you'll find further information along with web links and details of all our other episodes. And just before you go, let me point you to soundonsound.com/podcasts where you can explore what's playing on our other channels as well. My name's William J. Stokes, and this has been a production for Sound on Sound magazine.